Oh my God! Is there a spirit? Spirit? No. On this side, yeah. It's right here. Whoa!
The world's dependence on oil and gas is a given. Without these fuels, life as we know it would grind to a stop.
Hidden at the bottom of the ocean is a little-known factor that could accelerate the whole process. Massive deposits of frozen methane, a potent greenhouse gas.
The amount of methane in the ocean is much larger than the amount of methane and CO2 that we can get from fossil fuels.
If the ocean gets warm enough, the methane will defrost and rise from the ocean into the atmosphere. Global warming will suddenly get a steroid injection. If that happens, we will be past the tipping point. The oceans would become too hot to support much life. Droughts, forest fires, and famine would rage across the continents. Florida would be gone, completely swallowed by the rising ocean, as well as hundreds of cities all around the world.
One oil industry veteran says BP may have bigger problems and even larger leaks several miles away. Matt, welcome back to Bloomberg News. Always good to have you on.
Thank you. What a tragic story.
Yes, it is. And tell us about this other side of the story that we're hearing about, maybe even another ancillary spill. What's going on?
No, if the facts that are starting to come out are right, the ancillary leak is what the riser is all about. That's a minor thing.
Okay, so talk to me then about what we're seeing. We've been showing
a week ago last Sunday, the first research vessel from the National Underwater Laboratory was commissioned by NOAA to go out and sort of scout in the area. And what they found to their astonishment was about, I think, somewhere between 5 and 7 miles away from where the riser is, it was a gigantic plume growing. And it has now basically spread, apparently, from all to be a larger area than Delaware and Maryland. And that would appear to be the stuff we're finally seeing coming on shore. This really sticky orange-brown stuff.
Yeah.
So what the little plumes were coming out of the risers were minor. And the only logical conclusion anyone can draw from this is the best estimates, just measuring the spread of this oil lake is about 3,500 to 4,000 feet underwater, is that it's probably flowing at the rate of 120,000 barrels a day.
Describing the disaster unfolding still in the Gulf of Mexico, the 11 people killed, the untold damage to the environment and people's livelihoods. The term doomsday scenario is not far off. Our third story, what then is the next step worse than doomsday? As forecast here 2 weeks ago, evidence now of the possibility that something called an underground blowout might be happening. Oil seeping outside BP's damaged well through the ocean floor.
There's reports of oil that's seeping up from the seabed, which would indicate, if that's true, that the well casing itself is actually pierced underneath the seabed.
Last week, the Washington Post reported sources at companies involved with the well said that BP discovered damage inside the well below the seafloor during the initial top kill procedure. A BP official speaking on condition of anonymity had told the newspaper that, quote, "We discovered things that were broken in the subsurface and that the mud being pushed into the well to prevent oil from coming out was making it out to the side into the formation, and that any further attempts to contain the spill will pressurize the already damaged well below the seafloor, causing an underground blowout, and if that were to happen, subsea containment of the spill would get exponentially more difficult."
These stories that are coming out now, the one in the New York Times and the Washington Post that you talked about, square with what I heard last week from those who were closer to the operation, that they experienced some kind of a failure during the top kill operation, and that's one of the reasons they shut down so quickly. They likely had a casing failure during the top kill procedure. Remember, they had 30,000 horsepower pumping mud at about as much as 80 barrels a minute, and that kind of casing that's probably already damaged could have certainly failed. The relief wells are the only way to control this blowout, because it will kill the well at the source, which is what they've got to do to kill either a surface blowout or a subsurface blowout.
And if there are other subsurface blowouts and there are other, leaks through the floor of the ocean at that point, how much worse would this be?
The real doomsday scenario here, Keith, is if that casing gives up and it does come through the other strings of pipe, because remember, it's concentric pipe that holds this well together. If it comes into the formation, basically you've got uncontrolled flow to the seafloor, and that is the doomsday scenario. There's nothing they can do except the relief well, and it could likely flow for some time until they get it killed.
It's almost like being a little kid and afraid of the boogeyman in the closet, but this boogeyman's real. Globs of death out there, but this is unacceptable.
That is what makes this spill so heartbreaking for Walker. He's seen how rigs contribute to life here, providing artificial reefs for coral to live on. Now the leak from the Deepwater Horizon could be erasing years of good by wiping away that life. Splashing here 40 miles offshore, the images are heartbreaking. Oil so thick it blocks out almost all of the light below. But I could see oil in every direction as far as I could look, up and down.
When we first got in the water and we passed through that first 30 feet, what I noticed was a murky haze on the water that's usually not. But this was like a chemical solution haze.
Both men noted there were virtually no fish for the first 30 feet of the dive, and that is strange. At 60 feet below the surface, we found these strange floating strands of what seems to be dispersed oil.
Something I've never seen in diving in my whole life out here. These big snot balls. No, I never saw it in my life, ever.
It's not just a normal algae bloom or something that goes out?
Oh, no. There's nothing natural about what we dove in today.
Oil billowing, blowing by him with the current. Even then, most of the oil was underwater. Then he returned 2 weeks after the explosion and saw a large, thick oil plume at about 120 feet below the surface. NOAA has now confirmed the existence of those plumes as far as 142 miles away from the leak.
The oil is transformed. I've seen it to where it's sticking to the camera lens and sticking to everything.
Walker wants to share his pictures with the world, wants everyone to see what is at stake and what's happening beneath the surface. It's why he continues to dive, despite his fear of what's in the water.
It's me and a couple science buddies. We're out there swimming in the toxins, and because we care.
Porter has a permit to study the coral and has been taking samples since the explosion, but it doesn't take a sample to declare how bad this really is.
The stuff we saw today, I don't know of anything that would be able to live through that.
And many things haven't. Rich Matthews, The Associated Press in the Gulf of Mexico.